Pressing strength is a massive component of overall strength, and it's a fundamental human movement, which is why the bench press is included in the big three. Being a strong presser, though, goes farther than this. It's about overall strength. Sure, the bench press is the only movement that's tested in a powerlifting context, but if you want to be strong at pressing and strong overall, there's more to it. Getting strong pressing at any angle will not only make you a more well-rounded athlete, but add strength and size to not only your chest, but your shoulders and your arms. Today, I'm gonna break down everything you need to know to perfect your bench press form so you can stop leaking power and start moving some serious weight. Then as a bonus, we'll talk about the overhead press, the push press, and the incline bench press, and talk about how these can augment your overall pressing strength. All right, let's get into it. Jumping straight into the bench press. So, as always, we know that we need to focus on the perfect setup. Number one, so your nervous system learns the pattern and it knows exactly what to expect from this setup. And number two, because stability is absolutely critical when it comes to force generation. Your body will literally downregulate, i.e. decrease the amount of force that you can produce if it doesn't have a stable base to apply that force through. So for the bench press, your stable base is going to be your glutes firmly pressed against the bench, your feet firmly pressed into the ground. You can do this with either your toes or your heels, but this will help with leg drive. And then your scapula firmly pressed again into the bench. You can cue this with either proud chest or shoulders back. I like proud chest personally because that also cues a little bit of back arch. A bit of back arch is a good thing. You don't want your lumbar spine in contact with the bench because that's going to decrease your overall stability through your scapula. Ultimately, you're going to be generating force directly upward on the bar. We'll talk about bar path here in a second, but you're going to be pressing that force and applying it directly to that base that's where your scapula are located. You can see here that I actually do sort of a horizontal row, pulling my chest up to the bar before I set up. That's how I can set my scapula on the bench fully retracted and tight together so that when I'm complete with that, I'm in the perfect position to unrack. So once you get your scapula set on the bench, then you're going to get ready for your unrack. You're going to do this by generating some tension in your lats, slightly internally rotating at the shoulder, so pulling your elbows together. A great cue for this is trying to think of bending the bar. That'll help you generate lat tension and keep your shoulders internally rotated in a safer and stronger position. Then your unrack is straightforward. You're going to get the weight to directly above your scapula. And as you start the lowering or the eccentric phase of the movement, think of this as trying to place the bar on your chest in the perfect position where you want to start your press from. So as you're lowering, number one, controlling the eccentric is more hypertrophic, i.e. more growth promoting. But if you can think of this conceptually as placing the bar exactly where you want it to start your press, that'll put you in a really good position. All right, let's talk bar path for a second. When we look at this side view, you'll notice that as I'm lowering the weight, I'm not actually going straight down. I'm lowering the weight a little bit closer to my belly button or like the bottom of my nipple line. And that's because for most individuals, your shoulder's actually going to be in a more advantageous and structurally sound position with this bar path. You'll see with these couple later reps here, when I lower the bar straight down, that's actually going to cause my elbows to flare, which can, number one, decrease your stability, but number two, increase risk of injury for like a pec tear or some sort of shoulder injury. All right, so that's it for the bench press. Stable position to start. Lower the bar to where you want to start your press from. Make sure your scapula are retracted and pressed firmly into the bench. Same with your glutes and your legs. And you can use leg drive to drive additional tension through your body to make your base more stable. One last little cue for maximum force generation on the way up is white knuckles. Something about squeezing your hands tells your nervous system to drive more force through that extremity. So think of white knuckles trying to squeeze your hands around the bar as hard as possible as you're pressing up explosively and powerfully. All right, next we're going to jump into the overhead press. So I'm doing the standing barbell overhead press here. Military press is another good option if you don't want to have such significant core and stabilization requirements. If you do choose the standing variant, you want to brace similar to the way that you would for a squat or a deadlift and make sure that there's stability all the way from the floor, through your hips, through your core, to your shoulders, to the bar. Notice that my elbows are directly under the bar because I want to be pressing force directly up. And as I'm pressing here, you'll notice that when I get to about my forehead, I'm starting to press my head forward. This is called pushing your head through, and it's going to help you extend all the way at the top. So stacked joints, braced core as much as possible, elbows at the unrack directly under the bar. As far as grip, you can use a neutral grip, a false grip, or a normal grip, whichever kind of works best for your shoulders and your wrists. And that's the overhead press. A lot of the same principles as with the bench press, stable base, perfect setup, and then applying force powerfully and explosively on the work phase, lowering with control on the eccentric phase. Also, a variant of these that you can do is the push press, as you're seeing here. I like to add a couple of these to my last working set just to get a little extra stimulus and volume, but you can obviously perform them as their own exercise, ideally if you want to use a little bit higher loads. But really the key difference is a little bit of a jump or explosive hip drive, so this can have good carryover to Olympic movements, so if you're doing a lot of clean snatches, things like that, this may be a good option for you. And last but certainly not least, the incline barbell bench press. Most of the time, if you find the standard setup, like if you're not setting up your own custom rack, these are going to be a 45 degree. And you'll notice one key difference right out of the gate here. Your pecs are in a significantly more stretched position at the bottom of this movement. Now, that can be incredible for hypertrophy, but it can to some degree increase injury risk if you're not moving the weight intentionally, controlling your eccentric, and ideally pausing for a second at the bottom. I think that's one of the best ways to decrease injury risk. Overall, though, the incline bench press is comparable, if not better in some studies, than the horizontal or flat bench press. I like to play around with a variety of angles, like 30 degree to 45 degree. And if you're somebody who is injury prone or injury aware, like you're concerned about it, you can go with a 45 degree or neutral grip and consider using dumbbells for this to minimize any left to right side imbalances. Dumbbell incline bench press, probably a 30 degree incline, is personally my absolute favorite chest exercise. Also note, you're going to see that same sort of curve in the bar path between the incline bench press and the flat bench press. So very similar there. That's a wrap for this one, folks. Thank you, as always, for your time and attention. If you made it this far, drop me a like. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Any feedback, as always, is greatly appreciated. Working on the audio thing, I know that's kind of a deal. But if there's other topics that you want to see more of, if there's videos that you're resonating with, like training videos like this, or if you like more of the whiteboard, deep dive, nerdy stuff, totally down for both of those. So let me know what you're feeling. Maybe I can bump it up on the list, but I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.